Since 1968, Special Olympics has grown to be in 7 regions of the world, in more than 170 countries, with over 5 million athletes. Please welcome representatives from each of our regions. Representing Africa, Brightfield Shadi and Dr. Juma Mwankemwa. Representing Asia Pacific, Shirley Soon and Johannes Chi-Young. Representing East Asia, Shu Chuang and Mrs. Young Lan. Representing Europe, Eurasia, Johanna Pramsteller and Nick Booth. Representing Latin America, Jimena Barilla and Hector Cuellar. Representing Middle East North Africa, Naja Bidonen and Omar El Shinawi. And finally, representing North America, Natalia Komorowski and Pat Carpenter. Let's give all our representatives a big round of applause.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is my great pleasure to welcome you here for this incredible occasion. And as we can all see, the weather, perfect timing, is just, yeah. My name is Ben Hack, and if you can't tell by the accent, I'm clearly not from America. I'm from Australia. I'm also a Special Olympics International Board Director and an incredible footballer. On this day 50 years ago, in the midst of all the tumultuous unrest happening in a world on fire, an event was held at Soldier Field. This was a revolutionary moment in time. The world witnessed for the first time a sports competition for people with intellectual disabilities. Many of the participants needed to leave the institutions in which they lived to travel to Chicago to compete. Locked away and condemned to exist on the margins, they were brought out of the shadows and into one of the largest stadiums in the US. It was their chance, their moment to show the world what they could accomplish. Justice was sought, but not in the form of a rally or a protest. It was done by fighting for something, not against something. It was a sporting event with joy that sparked a social uprising and used an awards podium as a transformative stage. This was in 1968, and it was Special Olympics was born, a social inclusion movement that has challenged the status quo since, and in doing so has changed the world. We thank the Color Guard, featuring officers from the Chicago Police Department, Illinois State Police, and Cook County Sheriff Department. For everybody able and welcome, please, Bree Bagecki, who will sing the National Anthem.
Thank you so much for having me. This is such an honor. I love this so much that we can have this 50th anniversary for Special Olympics. It shows the movement of inclusion of people with intellectual disabilities or any disabilities or abilities. And, you know, no matter what race, ethnicity, ability, anything, it's so great that we can all come together as one. So thank you. I'm really nervous, so. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, now arriving is the Special Olympics Flame of Hope. The Flame of Hope was lit by the rays of the sun in Hyannisport, Massachusetts on July 10th, Eunice Kennedy Shriver's birthday. Delivering the Flame of Hope are 50 torch runners who are the guardians of the flame, led by Illinois State Torch Run Director, Chief Steve Stelter, and athlete and International Board of Director, Loretta Claiborne. The skies are starting to brighten over Chicago. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if you would, please give a warm welcome to Mike Kelly of Chicago Parks and Recreation.
Hi, good afternoon, Chicago! So I had a wonderful Irish quip about the rain and a great story, and I'm not going to jinx it, so I'm going to spare you that Irish proverb. But in any event, thank you for being with us today on behalf of all of Chicago, on behalf of our board president, Jesse Ruiz. Welcome to Soldier Field. Today we are here to celebrate both our past and our future. This stadium was dedicated in 1925 and serves as Illinois' most iconic landmark and memorial to the brave men and women who have made the ultimate sacrifice. From rock concerts to religion, rugby, soccer, hockey, and even NASCAR, this stadium has seen it all. Of course, Soldier Field is home to the Chicago Bears. But did you know Soldier Field played host to the first ever Special Olympics 3 years before Butkus and Sayers ever played their first game here in 1971. And as Ben said, it was a tumultuous time in 1968. And in just a minute, I'll let Ann Burke tell her story. But I would like to take a moment and ask all the athletes from 1968 to stand if you can, or raise your hand and withhold your applause for just a second. All the families that were there, all the volunteers, please stand or raise your hand. And lastly, I would like to ask former General Superintendent and his family, Thomas Berry, to stand and be recognized. Ladies and gentlemen, this is living history right in front of you. There's so many people to thank. I do want to recognize Governor Rauner for joining us today. Of course, I want to thank Tim Shriver and all the Shrivers and Kennedys that are with us. Mary Davis, Dennis Doolin, Mark Eatonson, Jenny Fortner, David Breen, Kevin Magnuson, Karen Atwood, and Eric Bauman, all the members of the Executive Committee. I want to, of course, thank all of our sponsors. I want to thank Dr. Janice Jackson and the Chicago Public Schools. I want to thank Richard Hunt. Ladies and gentlemen, Richard Hunt. Of course, I want to thank Mayor Emmanuel and Amy Rule. They've been committed to our city, our parks, and our people, especially people with disabilities. And some folks that are near and dear to my heart. I want to thank the entire Chicago Park District team, past and present, who have volunteered their time and their talents and their hearts to this cause, to Special Olympics over the past 50 years. Thank you. Without your involvement, we would not be standing here today. Special Olympics Chicago serves 7,500 athletes a year, and we provide special rec programs to more than 17,000 children and adults with disabilities, including our nation's veterans. And in closing, this year was named the Year of Inclusion in Chicago. And one of the ways the Chicago Park District is celebrating is through our most valuable future resource, our children. Throughout the summer, and in fact, right now, more than 40,000 summer day campers are wearing t-shirts today that read, "Unified, we choose to include." I am confident that these words and our actions will continue our movement for another 50 years and beyond. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike Kelly. The Walt Disney Company and ESPN are presenting today's ceremony as part of their partnership with Special Olympics. Now, to say a few words on behalf of Disney and ESPN, please welcome the Executive Vice President and Managing Director of ESPN International, Russell Wolf.
Hello, Chicago. As a brief but former Chicago resident, it is great to be back in town. Mike, thanks for those words. We're all glad to be here with you and your team. Mayor Emmanuel, Chief Lemunion and Stelter, members of law enforcement, and all of us, all of you joining us here today on behalf of the Walt Disney Company, ESPN, welcome and thanks for having us. To the Shriver and Burke families, the Special Olympics International team, and most importantly, all of you athletes out here, back here, and over here, we're here to salute you and say thank you. Disney and ESPN, we're honored to be here today. We're honored to be part of this celebration of the past and looking forward to what the future can be. We're extremely proud of our relationship with Special Olympics that spans more than 32 years, and thrilled to be global partners, media partners with the Special Olympics in support of the inclusion revolution. At ESPN specifically, we're proud to be the global presenting sponsor of Unified Sports and the global broadcast partner for the recent USA Games, and we are spending almost 24 hours a day getting ready for the World Games in Abu Dhabi in March. As we prepare to light this amazing sculpture, there's three things we should all keep in mind about the power of inclusion. It's the power of sports, the power of storytelling, and the power to make people feel welcome. At Disney and ESPN, we believe in that power, and also because we believe in the combined ability of people to come up with great ideas. The power of sports, at the heart of our relationship with Special Olympics, is a shared belief that this is sport, this is great competition, and these are great athletes with great stories. We believe sports at its best can uplift people and, yes, change the world. And the Special Olympics is sports at its best. Here's a few things that Eunice Kennedy Shriver knew long ago. 50 years ago, right here in Chicago, she started this movement that brings us all here today. She knew that sports could bring people together. She knew it could drive inclusion, and she knew that if the world saw what people with intellectual disabilities had to offer, if the world heard them and saw their stories, it would change the way the world thought about them. And we are honored and thrilled to be able to continue what she knew every day at ESPN, on the radio, on television, on digital platforms, and amongst our employees. We couldn't be more proud to be here with the Special Olympics and all of you, and to do our part to make sure the flame she lit 50 years ago is always burning around the world. A small plug for you and for tonight. Tune in tonight. The 2018 Special Olympics Unified Cup presented by Toyota will be on ESPN2 tonight from 5 to 8 o'clock live here in Chicago. It's going to be a great event. Finally, I now have the privilege to introduce some remarkable individuals who keep the fire burning and the power of the inclusion revolution going, the Special Olympics Global Messengers. Every day, these leaders educate, engage, and activate people all around the world. They personify the values of Special Olympics and are living proof of the movement, and we love telling their story around the world. Representing this group, I'd like to introduce Special Olympics athlete, my friend, an innovator, and global messenger, Castor Edwards.
Wow. Thank you. I'm so glad the sun is out. Before I was saying, Mrs. Shriver and Sergeant Shriver and all our Special Olympics athletes who are not longer here with us was blessing us. So now they're shining the sun on us for moving forward. So listen. My name is Castor Edwards. I'm a Special Olympics athlete from Trinidad, originally from Trinidad and Tobago. Now I'm living in the United States over the last 18 years. I'm so glad to be here today to celebrate the 50th anniversary with you all. 20 years ago, I was actually here in Chicago celebrating the 30th anniversary where we had the first class of global messengers from around the world. Actually, this year, we are actually celebrating our 20th year, and I'm so glad to have my fellow class like Miguel, Florence, I saw Stacy. So it's really great to see my fellow friends from 20 years ago. We lost a couple of Special Olympics ambassadors a few years ago, Mark Ciccone and Billy Quick, two global ambassadors. And I show there with Mrs. Shriver and Sergeant Shriver right now, looking down on us today, inspiring us. My Special Olympics career begins in Trinidad and Tobago as a swimmer. It wasn't easy, but it was great. The early 80s, Mrs. Shriver came to the Caribbean and Special Olympics was founded. And this is where my story began and my journey. Swimming was my sport. And one of the things that in the early 90s me and my friends had was to do was to prove to race director, as we speak about inclusion, was to prove that we can actually swim. And this was early back. So we're still proving that we can actually be great sportsmen and sportswomen. I was fortunate enough after many years of having Special Olympics sporting career. I had 2 World Games, silver and bronze. I did football/soccer. I was like, sorry, I'm from the Caribbean, I gotta say football. So, and those were my international Special Olympics career. But after that, I was led into the leadership program called Athlete Leadership, where athletes was able to become leaders and spokesmen and women. As we see here today, we have a beautiful singer who is going to be on American Got Talent soon. And believe it or not, with being in that position as an athlete leader, I was serving on the Rules Committee in Special Olympics International, a board member. I play many different roles, and now I'm an employee at Special Olympics for the last 17 years. My journey with Special Olympics has taken me around the world developing sports, which was one of the greatest things I had the opportunity to do, to actually give back service. Giving to me what was given back, and to be in the position to do that was really inspiring. And I was very inspired by looking at the videotapes of 1968. And as a swimmer, one of the first sports in 1968 was swimming. Now we have open water swimming in Special Olympics as our official sport. So imagine that. So this is how we take Mrs. Shriver's dream from 1968 beyond the pool to the water. I was fortunate enough to work and have the opportunity to sit with Mrs. Shriver a number of times and listen to her words. And some of the things she used to share with me as a young man is asking me, young man, what are you doing different for the movement and for our athletes? Young man, are you staying fit? So Mrs. Shriver believed in sport and physical activity. And I always like how she challenged me, because this is how I challenge my colleagues and my peers to think beyond what we do normally. So I'd like to challenge you all here today as you leave to go back home in your countries, states. What are you going to do different for Special Olympics and for our athletes after today? I would like you all to stand with me and recite one of the greatest athlete oaths that was ever said. Repeat after me. Let me win. But if I cannot win, let me be brave in my attempt. Love you all. Bless.
Thank you, Castor and Russell Wolf. As our Special Olympic program continues on this special day in Chicago, now please welcome Robert Ryder, President of the Chicago Federation of Labor, the third largest central labor council of the National AFL-CIO.
What an honor it is to be up here following Castor. Can we give Castor one more round of applause? Good afternoon. Excuse me. Geez, I don't know if it's the rain that did that. I'm honored to be here today on behalf of the Chicago Federation of Labor's 300 unions that represent 500,000 working men and women here in the city of Chicago. 50 years ago today, right here at Soldier Field, the movement for inclusion was started by Ann McClone, who we all know today as Illinois Supreme Court Justice Ann Burke, and 1,000 inspiring athletes and their families from 26 states and Canada. That's right. Through their competitiveness and courage, they helped to forever change the way the world sees people with disabilities. The idea for Special Olympics came from Justice Burke, who at the time was a PE teacher with the Chicago Park District and a member of one of our affiliate unions, the Laborers Union. And here's a little tidbit many of you may not know. We're on McFetridge Drive right here, and Ann Burke will tell this story quite a bit when you talk to her about the history of Special Olympics. You see, Chicago Park District President William McFetridge, who was president at the time, he was president of the Park District, but also was president of SEIU Local 1, and at one time was president of SEIU's International Union, one of our largest service employee unions in the country. And Ann Burke asked Bill McFetridge to create a program that would bring more of Chicago's children with intellectual disabilities out of the shadows and into the parks. But the reality of the Special Olympics was championed and supported not just by Ann Burke and Bill McFetridge, but also by Eunice Shriver and the Shriver Foundation, as well as Chicago's labor movement. And you know, I think it's appropriate now to thank the Shriver and Kennedy families for everything that they've done, not just for Special Olympics here in the city of Chicago, but for all the things that they do for social and economic justice. So thank you. At a time when society shunned people with special needs, often hiding them away in homes or institutions, Justice Burke remained committed to bringing these boys and girls out of the shadows. Justice Burke had a vision, and organized labor shared in that vision, because we understand that while some may try to limit our opportunities as individuals, nothing moves our communities forward like the power of collective action. In 1968, organized labor was proud to empower Justice Burke and everyone who worked on those first games to produce something spectacular. Today, we are honored to continue with that support as we celebrate the last 50 years of sport, inclusion, and opportunity, and launch the movement into the future, because the fight for inclusion is just as relevant today as it was in 1968. And wouldn't it be great if everybody in this country and around the world believed in that? Believed in it like we all do here today? We're honored to be here for the dedication to the eternal flame of hope on McFetridge Boulevard. And I want to thank those first athletes, some of whom, as you know, are here today, as well as all the athletes and their families who continue the competition today. It is also important to acknowledge the continued commitment, not only of the Chicago Park District and Mike Kelly and Special Recreation Manager Jerry Hennigan, but also thank the City of Chicago, Mayor Emmanuel, and the members of the City Council for everything they've done to help put this 50th anniversary games on. I also want to thank Mary Davis, CEO of Special Olympics Worldwide, as well as our local leadership. I want to thank my friend David Breen of Special Olympics Illinois and Kevin Magnuson of Special Olympics Chicago, and all the people in the neighborhoods of Chicago who volunteer and show up when we need them. I'd also like to personally thank the unions across Chicago who stepped up 50 years ago today to make the first games a reality, and those who continue to step up today and support this incredible cause. You know, when you see the CFL's logo on some of these signs, that's not me and that's not the people just in my office. Let me say it again, that's 300 unions. That's everyone from the Carpenters Union to the Laborers Union, the Operating Engineers Unite here, unions all across this city who believe in the mission of Special Olympics, just as they believe in the neighborhoods of Chicago. So, since those first games were right here in Soldier Field, Special Olympic athletes continue to show us through their strength and character, that there are no limits in what we can achieve together. And not only am I going to thank all of you for being here, I'm going to thank them for being here and having the courage to compete. Thank you.
Over 50 years ago, a grant was submitted to the Joseph P. Kennedy Foundation to fund a track meet for people with intellectual disabilities here in Chicago. At age 23, this woman was summoned from Eunice Kennedy Shriver to come to Washington, D.C. to discuss her proposal, which became the first Special Olympic Games. Youth leadership is a priority for Special Olympics, and you could say, well, Ann Burke, I suppose, is the OG, the original gangster. So please welcome Justice Ann Burke.
Thank you, Ben. Good afternoon, everybody. I can't begin to say anything about what's happening today. I feel it's so surreal to be here on July 20th at the same time, at the same field 50 years ago when the world changed. On the morning of July 20th, 1968, 1,000 courageous young athletes paraded to this historic lakefront stadium and ignited a torch of hope, valor, progress, and achievement. Today, on its golden anniversary of that remarkable event, which truly has changed the world, we dedicate the Eternal Flame of Hope monument created by the renowned sculptor Richard Hunt. Richard. As we unveil Mr. Hunt's eternal flame, we renew our tribute to the power of hope and the triumph of social equality over the evils of exclusion and discrimination. This monument, in the shadow of the iconic Soldier Field, will truly inspire generations to uphold and pursue the powerful ideas this beautiful work of art symbolizes. The universal ideals of strength through unity and inclusion for people with intellectual differences and the promise of so many glorious tomorrows for our special athletes. In 1968, Park District President William McFetridge, Vice President Dan Shannon, and Superintendent Tom Berry helped to create the pillars upon which Special Olympics was built. Because of that support and devotion to inclusion and equality, which they and so many others have demonstrated over these last 50 years, the world has witnessed what Special Olympics represents. Now I'm going to take a point of personal use here. We have many people here today who we want to thank, but also people here who have been present and were present 50 years ago. I would like them to raise their hand. The Dan Shannon family, Tom Berry is here and his family, Rich Perillo and his family, Jack McHugh and his family, Tom Maher and his family, the Stan Harrison family, Joe Pecoraro, who put the pool in the north end of Soldier Field with all the union riggers and everybody else, and the Andy Trilla Duffy family. Special Olympics would not exist. And of course, we have our athletes from 1968, Tim Corrigan, and my special student, Mike Cusack. Special Olympics has been an important part of all our lives, and this historic anniversary permits us to reflect on how much Special Olympics has shaped the world. As proud Chicagoans, we are particularly proud that Chicago is the birthplace of Special Olympics. Special Olympics brightened the world and offered it a new hope. Right here from Chicago. May this eternal flame, I pray, stand as a constant symbol of that hope and eternal beacon of strength and unity through inclusion and equality. Thank you all.
Okay, thank you, Justice Burke. Our next speaker has led the City of Chicago to record-breaking increases in tourism, job growth, and business attraction during his 7 years in office. He has also been an incredible host and partner to Special Olympics and the 50th anniversary during all our planning and preparation over the past few years. Please welcome the Mayor of the great City of Chicago, the Honourable Rahm Emmanuel.
Thank you. Thank you very much. 50 years ago, the city of Chicago, then America, then the world's eyes were open to the potential and possibility of every person and every athlete. A spotlight was put on ability, not disability. A force for greatness in the globe began here in the city of Chicago. I cannot think of a better way to begin and celebrate the 50-year anniversary than a city of Chicago that held the first event for the Special Olympics was also the host for so many moments of greatness and so many firsts. It is here splitting of the atom and the effort, which was a force of energy. And today, once again, we celebrate another first and a force of energy, the global forces of the Special Olympics. To the Kennedy, to the Shriver, and to the Burke family, may us all now give them a hand and thank them for what they've done. The city of Chicago is home to immigrants from around the world who see a better day and a better tomorrow. And from here, they begin again their journey for their children. So what started here was a journey for a better tomorrow. You're up now because I'm getting off for you.
Okay. Wow. Okay, I've now got the job of introducing my friend Tim Shriver. I've been told that you got to keep your speech short. Maybe this is your mum saying that you need to hurry up.
No. Thank you. So the only thing I'll say is that I think my mother sent Ann Burke to Sears to buy a swimsuit on the way to the first games. And I think she's telling us, get off the stage and get into the pool. So to everyone, to my family, to my wife, my sister, my brother, my cousins, my nieces, my nephews, my children, thank you. Let's light the flame of hope and burn inside.
Special Olympics has touched so many lives, and there are millions of people who have been involved over the past 50 years. Representing the past, present and future, we invite representative members of our Special Olympic family to unite to create the community of hope.
Hey, I'm Chief Lemunion, and I'm now demanding your attention. So, my 30-minute speech is down to 30 seconds. So as a founder of the Torch Run, we are going to symbolically light all the 7 regions. And you will notice as they come across, the athlete will be accompanied by a uniformed officer. And then at the conclusion of that, Loretta and her compadre, we will light the eternal flame of hope. If there's any changes, I will update you.